Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Smite Draft League. An exciting Divine Division matchup coming at you today between the Kingslayers and the Shockwaves. I'm DoctahShru to bring you all the action. Joining me today is Gearchief, and as we get ready to head into picks and bans, how are you feeling about this one, Gear?
I'm feeling excited as always because this season has been it's been so fun. All the games I've casted and everything I've watched, it feels like everything goes to game 3 nowadays, which is it's such a sweet payoff because not only does that make it so much fun to watch, but it also just shows how competitive these teams are and just how well they can play together. And looking at these teams right now, I see a lot of familiar faces that I'm excited to see kind of fight off against each other. Soul lane, we got Swag and Nicodrin. I know that's going to be a fun thing to watch. You got their first bands coming out. Baba Yaga, you always have to respect her, especially when it's stacking meta with the coin and the prophetic. She gets all that too freely and too easy. And the problem is, especially with the coin, is she gets stacks so passively versus you having to actually kill or assist for that. So before you know it, she just has an enhanced coin. And there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, it makes her so hard. I like seeing that taken away, and I like the Ravana, the Yorm, and the Kali. Very standard bans so far between these two teams, which you usually see in game one. So I like what they're choosing to prioritize here. Ganesh ban, not as standard as some of the other picks we've seen. Do you like Ganesh getting taken off the board here?
I think it's something that you have to respect because I think the biggest problem with Ganesh, bar his ultimate, because his ultimate is just its own issue on its own, is the silence. Because he sits there and he can chase you with it and he can follow you. So like if Nox throws out a giant silence, right, you can just kind of walk out of the bubble, unless someone pins you there, but you can walk out. Some of these silences you can really dodge or they're delayed. His is an instant silence and he's following you the entire time that it's happening. So that's just preventing you from really doing anything else. And it's so annoying. And like I said, you got the ultimate, which could just steal objectives before you even know it, or just shred you of health protections and whatnot. First pick, we see Martigar is coming out, and you know if he's open, people are gonna pick him. He's the top ADC. So much damage coming out from all his different abilities, and you know we got to talk about it. Death from above on such a short cooldown, and when he flies up in the air, he's in there for so long, and then just the constant protection shred that comes out from it too. You have to pick him if he's available.
Yeah, he is so good right now. You say he's the top ADC. I think he's also maybe the top mid. Like he just can do anything, anywhere, at any given time. It's a great first lock-in. But the Kingslayers answer back with the tier and that Kuzumbo for themselves, so locking down their front line. And that is so much displacement coming out from those two gods.
And that's a lot of displacement, I guess, is the best. You really hit the nail on the head there, because it's moving bodies and putting them into a more convenient spot for the rest of your team. I love the tier. He's one of my favorite gods. The fearless is just something you have to respect, because before you know it, your entire team is just shoved into a wall and there's nothing you can do about it, and you're all organized and just you're easy pickings for the enemy team, and it's not a good time. Maui getting picked out. It's been a bit since we've seen a Maui, but you know there's going to be some chaos and some fun times when he's swinging on that sun and ripping islands out. I'm excited to see how Jim Kana brings this Maui to life.
Yeah, I think Maui's kind of a sleeper pick right now. As you said, not somebody we see too often, but can bring so much to the team. I like that as an answer back to the Kuzumbo. And picks and bans moving quickly here. The Susano's locked in as well for the Kingslayers before they ban away that Shiva, answered back by the X-Ball on the other side by the Seismic Shockwaves. Both of these teams seem to have an idea of what they're going for right now. And just based off the top three, do you feel like either one kind of got the advantage so far?
I feel like when you pick Marty, you always have an advantage, but I also feel it kind of puts you in an awkward spot, because now we have to see them kind of... It looks like it's going to be a Marty mid, but we need to see more magical damage coming out of Shockwaves, because they run the risk of not being able to
Look into my
do the right
eyes.
damage, because all Kingslayers needs to do is kind of throw protection items out there, and there you go. You kind of dealt with your issue. And like we said, it does shred protection, so if the Marty can use that ultimate very well, then it's not going to be a problem, but that's something you really have to plan around. But with the Kingslayers, they have a lot of CC and even more displacement with the Susanoo, so I'm kind of leaning on the side of Kingslayers right now. It just feels like when it comes to team fights, you're not really going to be able to handle them too easily.
Medusa is the pick for the Kingslayers to add to their top 3. Not someone I personally expected to see at all today in this set. What's Medusa going to bring to this Kingslayer squad over some of the more standard picks like the Cernunnos even that was still available, or the Hachiman?
I feel the ultimate is really where it's at. Is you get, it's a big cone and you're forcing everyone to turn away and respect that. A lot of damage coming out of it too. But I think it might be more of a comfort pick, honestly, because Hachiman has a safer ultimate. He's got more mobility with his dash. That banner just adds a huge power buff. So if I'm seeing this, I'm thinking that Ragemore is a bit more comfortable on the Medusa, but Ragemore has also been known to be a lot of off-meta picks. So he's always an exciting player to watch because he uses so many gods in such unexpected ways. Odin comes out, and I gotta say I really like it, because the only person who can really get out of it is the Susanoo with the Cloud, but that was before the Scylla came out, so 2 people can get out of it now, but that still leaves 3 caged in, and without the healing allowed in the cage, Tyr's definitely going to suffer greatly, so I think that Odin's a good pick, but Seismic Shockwaves is definitely lacking on that magical damage.
Well, let's find out how these picks play out by hopping into game number 1 here between the Seismic Shockwaves and the Kingslayers. Figure out who comes out on top. Welcome into game 1, everybody. Here, buffs are spawning and we are hopping right into the action. And as we wait for, it's usually chaos once these games get a bit underway. So we have a moment to breathe. Maybe ask you here, now that we have the full 5, are you still kind of leaning Kingslayer's way as kind of coming out ahead of picks and bans? Or do you think the last 2 from the Shockwaves are enough to kind of tilt it back in their favor?
I definitely got to say, I like Kingslayer's draft a bit better. I feel the displacement's really going to help when it comes to the team fights, and the big circle from Scylla is really going to compensate if they can't get too much of that displacement. A lot of beads burners, especially with the Kuzenbo. So I think they have the advantage, and it doesn't help Shockwaves that they're really lacking on the magical. But Martigris, like we said, is a huge presence in the mid, and especially he's going to have an easy time early game into the Scylla. So it's all about keeping the Scylla down. I think it's going to be the big name of the game here.
Yeah, Scylla, definitely a god that needs the time to come online. Is that where you think Ganondad should be focusing the pressure then onto the Scylla and kind of leave the side lanes more to their own devices?
I think you have to make priorities. And it's the idea of, are you going to oppress the solo lane and keep that tier starved of mana? Because that's really important. I've seen that in a couple of games where tiers available and been picked. Is that if you can keep him starved for mana, he's not going to be able to do too much, and then the whole lane's a non-factor. So if you can get that buff on a cooldown, then the tier starts becoming less and less of a problem. He can't rotate, he can't do the damage, he can't heal, and he can't set up. So I would like to see maybe a little pressure going in the way of the solo lane, but I'm also biased being a solo laner myself.
Definitely understand that. Nikojin is a great player, so I agree that it would be a good strategy to kind of make sure he's uncomfortable on this pick that can be so impactful. And you've mentioned it a couple times so far, this 4 Fizz coming out from the Shockwaves, their only magical damage being that Maui support, who probably won't do too much. We might have to hold that thought, though, as Ganondad's getting collapsed upon. The Sikkim does land. He gets hit as well, and the crush does so much. Wyvern will get credit for the first kill of this game, and Kingslayers already just swinging there in the jungle.
Ganondad definitely trying to do what I was suggesting, realizing that they need to keep the tier down. But the problem is, if you're gonna invade, you need the wards, you need the coverage, you need to know where the enemy is, because it's just an awkward spot getting caught. That Storm Kata was a great follow up to the Crush and Sikkim, and Ganondad just couldn't respond to all that coming out. It was just it was a good idea, just didn't have the right intel to kind of make it come to life. And I think that's going to be the big idea. And now if I'm Ganondad, I'm going to be like, all right, I might have just kind of, I might want to let the solo be. I tried my best here. Maybe I'll see if I can get it again. But I think the priorities now is going to be a little bit of farming. And try to maybe look at this Medusa now, who doesn't, has got the dash, but the problem with that is if you can body block it, then she's stuck out. So a nice Pele blink into a body block for the dash can really put Ragemore in a bad spot. So maybe you might want to start looking to the dual lane rather than let the soul laners just fight it off, because if you can't get the tier down early, he's just not going to be easy to fight at all. The opportunity's kind of missed at that point, and you need to wait till either a new one pops up to really take advantage of the solo lane.
Yeah, it's a small window when tier feels like he's killable, and that might have already passed already. So I feel like, Ganondad, he got the first blood. He got first blooded there, excuse me. And he started item and then starter. And there's a part of me that thinks maybe he deserved to get first blooded there. It always looks so bad on the item screen.
So back when I played, there was another caster, and we tried to do the same thing just to like annoy him. And I was sat there crunching numbers because I wanted to try to get that starter item in the third slot.
Oh no!
And I couldn't get it done in the season 1. Season 2 I was getting ready because they added there were some new changes. Maybe Mana Core spikes came in, or something. There was some new gold change, and I realized that it could be done, but I think before the season even started, they changed back. They changed the gold back. So you couldn't really get it in the third slot, but I was so ready to do it too. I was so ready.
That would look awful. Just something that always irks me. I don't know what it is. But speaking of items, we can see that JunglePhobic, he's opted for that sovereignty first overall here because of the 4 Fizz on the other side. Do you think that it's gonna? Do you still go Thebes after that, or sovereignty just kind of take the place of the Thebes there?
I think sovereignty is enough. Thebes is all right. I feel you can't really go wrong with it because it forces you to kind of be honest with your farming. Like, it forces you to get the assists, so you're not stealing kills from your team, right? You're not stealing the minions or the buff camp, so it kind of forces you to be honest. And a little bit more of magical protections isn't going to hurt anybody, so it's always a decent item to go. And because you don't want this Maui kind of replacing and doing the damage that he can, and it kind of makes him a non-factor because you got a little magic protections for the rest of your team. I think it's a decent item, and you can do it, but I don't think it's as necessary as originally, say, if Seismic Shockwaves had more magical. If they had more magical, I would say it's worth it to invest the money. Here, I think you can get away with it.
Love to see what Phobic ends up wanting to do as he gets aggressive here in the jungle. Once again, it's Ganondad who's getting looked at, and a lot of damage coming out of Wyvern. He has the mobility, and the Typhoon is not enough to get the kill. Ganondad makes it out, but they could look for a turnaround now. JunglePhobic is getting body blocked, has to use his ultimate to make some space there, but will be able to make it out. Lots of back and forth damage, but no blood ends up getting spilled around that Gold Fury.
That was very fun to watch because you watch the Pele dash out of panic and the Storm just chase her tail, and there was so much anticipation going on there. I had no idea if she was going to make it, and Ganondad manages to get out of there just in time. And I think that was important because Ganondad really needs to kind of focus up here. They got caught out twice now. So I think you have to start being a bit more careful, maybe warding a bit more, get the information. We do see Shockwave has considerable wards solo side, but I think they might want to start putting a little bit more in this duo side and allow Ganondad to feel a little bit more safe in this jungle of his.
Vision wins games for a reason. Always helpful in these fights. Rage more on this Medusa, that a non-standard pick. It makes sense to go a non-standard build. Bluestone into Transcendence is something we usually see for something like a Marticarus or something like an AMC. Do you feel like that's going to suit how Ragemore is going to play this Medusa?
I feel like with Medusa, you can get away with it. The spit does a lot, especially if you're getting the spray to cover the entire wave. You're looking for a lot of damage on the ultimate, so you're kind of banking on that being the big turnaround with a burst of damage. But looks like we're getting a lot of fight here in this Fire Giant pit.
Ganondad is the first to fall in this engagement. Unfortunate for the Pele once again, and it could be the Maui next in trouble, but has that Solar Leap to make it out of there. It's not enough though. Wyvern will get another kill added to his tally, and Death from Above is needed for the safety for Reyhum to make it out of that fight. It allows them to even step up towards this red buff, but Nicodrin might have bit off more than he could chew, starts taking quite a bit of damage. He's tanky on that tier. As you mentioned before, you have a window to really look at him before he feels almost unkillable. But Wyvern now on the Susano 3-0 just 9 minutes into this game.
One thing about Susano is he's got a lot of versions of escape between the Cloud and the Storm Kata, and then he can really cover his tracks with the Typhoon. So you always got to watch out for him. He can dive your tower, dump damage, and then get away. If he gets a blink too, then that's a big issue, because now he can initiate with the blink and he's got two forms of getting out. So what he's going to use on you, and he's got so many ways to bait your movements out, the Storm Kata, or he throws a Cloud on you. So even if you're Mercury and you cross the whole map to try to get away, but you have that Cloud on you, he's going to pop up right next to you. This Susano pick is definitely something you have to watch out for, because you're not safe anywhere.
Yeah, and Wyvern is doing such a good job on that pick to take advantage of all that mobility and all that burst damage. Speaking of damage, SwagMaster is doing quite a bit to Nicodrin, just poking him out a little bit there in the solo lane. This has been moments of intensity, but for the most part, a pretty slow game between these two teams. Do you think they both are just valuing their late game, or is one of them needing to kind of get a move on? Do you feel like either one is on a timer this game?
Early game, I don't really feel like, to answer your question more directly, I don't feel like there's much of a timer going on, because you want the Rama to get the late game, but you also want your Scylla to get the late game. Your assassins are both going to help get there, and Tier might help a little bit more bolster your team, but I think these teams both want to get to late game for their carries, and they're perfectly centered around, but we got a bunch of chaos going into this jungle.
Oh no, Ganondad once again. Wyvern let the man farm in peace. Gets another kill for himself, but now he's the one getting aggressed upon. Here comes the Marticarus, a good landfall. Pulls back Ragemore, who's now stuck, but Wyvern has been left alone, and he will be able to make it out. Reyhum goes up into the sky and is pouring damage down onto the Medusa. Two snipes hit. The third one lands as well, and ZakuZz makes sure that kill goes their way. First kill going the way of the Seismic Shockwaves, but they cost so much as Tortuga has rotated over as well and will get the kill in return onto the ROM. Kingslayers are just kind of running the show right now.
You can see them as they're really putting their damage out in very valuable places, and the Scylla is now online, so it's going to be a bit harder for the Marticarus, because the Marticarus has the advantage early because a lot of the DOT. But now that Scylla's got that burst out, you really got to respect those circles. And that's one of the things I love about a Scylla mid. Like, my favorite mids are the ones with these big circles. I like Scylla, I like Agni, Vulcan's in there too. The ones who can really just start zoning off and make the most out of the chaos. And we really saw that in there as we got Tortuga right coming up to kind of help gank and rotate into the fight. But again, we just saw the Susano and the ability to just stick to your target by Storm Kataing on him and then dashing through him. I really think Kingslayers has the better composition right now, because they can stick to you, and not only can they stick to you, if they get onto you, they're going to make sure you can't get away. And it's going to be a bit of an issue for Shockwaves coming out here.
So what does Shockwaves need to do to kind of, make sure that that doesn't happen? What is their game plan to counteract how slippery and how good at staying on top of you this Kingslayers squad is? And speaking of that, the Rom snipes, one more is all that's needed, and he hits it. He just doesn't miss with these snipes. There'll be another kill for the Rom, who has the only 2 kills going the way of the Shockwaves. Needs to be careful, though. The Kappa is enough. JunglePhobic might have got credit for that kill, but we all saw the Kappa did the work there. That will be unfortunate for ZakuZz on that Rama once again.
And that's one of the annoying things about dealing with any type of Kuzenbo, who just, the Kappa just does so much damage. But not only does the Kappa do damage, we see that Kuzenbo is doing his own work.
Oh. And Wyvern again is there with the Typhoon. Ganondad again ends up falling to the Susano. This has just been the Wyvern show right now. 5-0-1, 13, almost 14 minutes into the game. It seems like wherever he goes, death for the Shockwaves just follows.
That is one thing to say. He's been on top of him, and he's looking at Reyhum, who looks a bit tasty right now. And he's got to start being careful. But the one thing I'm going to say is Wyvern might be up 5-0 to on Ganondad, but the level disparity is only about a level. Wyvern's been really running through the team, but he hasn't really translated it into anything, right? There's no Gold Furies have been done, no Pyromancers have been done. They got a beacon, but the beacon's a bit easy. So I think that Seismic Shockwaves has the opportunity, if Ganondad just kind of hunkers down and farms, then I think the Shockwaves have an opportunity to come back here. It's not necessarily about how many kills you get, but what you do with those kills. And it looks like they're going to try to get a Pyromancer here.
You called for objectives, and it seems like the Kingslayers have heard you. They will be able to pick up that Pyromancer secured there by Tort with that Scylla I'm a Monster ultimate. So they do extend their gold lead now around the 5,000 or so mark. In the lead are the Kingslayers. And 15 minutes in, that is not a small amount. It's not backbreaking. It's not like the Shockwaves are unable to fight into anything. But that is, you're going to feel that in the team fights, that amount of gold between it. Do you think the Shockwaves need to look to kind of group before the Kingslayers and try to play this as a pick comp to turn things back around? Or should they just focus on trying to secure objectives?
I think they need to play to the aggressiveness of Wyvern, and I'm talking about Seismic Shockwaves. He wants to dive in, and he's been eating Ganondad all day, right? Well, bait it out. Use the knockup that Pele has, and then jump in on Wyvern and force him to run away. I think Wyvern's very confident right now, and he has every reason to be, but I think you take advantage of that because he's on level with Ganondad. So there's not much that he has over Ganondad. And I think you take advantage of that. You take advantage of the confidence that Wyvern has. And the fact that he's maybe got these kills, but he hasn't really translated it into an effective lead just yet.
Yeah, Ganondad just must be farming the map so well to be able to keep up with what they're doing. The biggest level disparity is actually Tortuga over Reyhum there with a 2-level lead on the Scylla. He's just been able to, I guess, farm the map a little bit better. Marticarus has been making those rotations and might have been missing out on some waves or something along those lines. But we're 16 minutes in now, and it looks like Gold Fury is going to be the call for this Kingslayer squad. They are grouping around that side of the map. Do you want to see the Shockwaves kind of step up and contest this one?
Shockwaves really need to contest this one, because if they don't, it's just be death by 1,000 cuts extended. We got the ultimate out of Rage More. ZakuZz is stuck in the air. Is not looking good.
It's not. He comes down into a world of pain, but he's got the shell. Good roll to turn around some damage. But of course, Wyvern's here to make sure that kill goes the way of the Kingslayers. And they're not done yet. They're going to get rid of this T1 tower and left, charge forward and take that one. And JunglePhobic is going to make sure that this Maui does not feel comfortable stepping up, because it looks like Gold Fury might be the call now. The crush is starting to tick down onto that Gold Fury. And the zoning is so strong coming out of the Kingslayers now. No one can really step up towards this Fury, and it seems like we're just baiting it. They want the fight instead. Charging forward are the Kingslayer Lawbringer into the Fearless. So much damage onto Gymkhana, but SwagMaster does get the kill onto Ragemore to kick things off here. Ganondad gets a kill as well, but of course Wyvern's there to shut him back down. Nicodrin gets a kill for himself as well. And we can see the Marticarus did a lot of damage, but it wasn't enough to find a kill for himself there. Reyhum doing what he can. But Tyr is here in the backline and looking for more of the Fearless into the wall. Does a little bit of damage to the Marticarus. And it seems like, though, the Kingslayers need to back up. Look at the health bars of the remaining members. They need to be careful here. Wyvern needs to be careful as Reyhum does quite a bit of damage on the Marty, but the Typhoon's getting charged up. Wyvern is confident at the moment and will be able to make it out for the time being. But Shockwaves, they handled that pretty well. The Gold Fury's still standing. Kingslayer's unable to pick that one up.
One thing that Shockwaves has to be careful now is the re-engage. You can win the fight at Gold Fury, but just kind of take a bit too much time and then just get caught out again as a full health team just kind of collapses right on you. But the objective is going to start looking at this Stygian Beacon.
Oh, where did Nicodrin's health bar go? He has to get out of there. No health remaining. And up into the skies once again goes Reyhum, but there are so many members of the Shockwaves on the beacon, and that is trouble for JunglePhobic. I'm a monster off the mark as the Rom gets the first kill of this small engagement. Beacon goes the way of the Shockwaves as well, and it was feeling like they were falling behind, but they win another fight. They get an objective. The things are starting to swing back in their direction.
A very solid showing from Seismic Shockwaves indeed. This is what I'm talking about too, is that we saw that Wyvern really was killing everybody, but there wasn't systematic, it wasn't calculated, and they didn't really translate it. So yeah, you might have a lot of deaths, but if you can kind of keep up with them, the deaths don't translate into anything. They don't translate into any objectives. They don't translate this. There's no real rhyme or reason behind each one. It's just, this guy's here, let's kill him. This guy's here, let's kill him. And the conversation afterwards it needs to be, what are we doing now that he's dead? How do we take advantage of this? What does his death mean? What lane do we push now? What does that open up? It just feels like there's a bit more arena killing than there was calculated killing.
Do you think that's, you know, just the play style of the Kingslayers here, or do you feel like maybe, I mean, this is week 2, right? So synergy is still something that all these teams are kind of looking towards. Do you feel like maybe they're just need to focus up on some comms, or is it a play style difference?
I think it's a little bit of not really, I don't want to say inexperience, because that's not the right word. I just think it's a bit like just blood in the water type thing. Person's there, kill him, ha ha ha, we did this. And then you forget there's a whole bunch of macro and micro thinking that goes into it as well. Both teams are going to see if they can get this Pyromancer. Kingslayers do secure it with an I'm a monster, putting another objective in their pocket, starting to translate this lead into something a bit more.
And they're going to get a little bit more onto Reyhum as well, who has to go into that death from above. But they're diving underneath the tower. They got a couple bombs, and Wyvern will get that kill. Look at the damage onto the Shockwave members. That's a triple kill for the Susano. And the Rom could be soon to follow. Ragemore steals away the quadra kill. But that is so much damage, so many kills going the way of the Kingslayers. They'll get the mid-tier 1, they'll get the mid-tier 2, and it's SwagMaster against the world. They're stepping up towards the Phoenix. He will get the blink in and trap them in the cage, but they might be trapped in there, he might be entrapped in there with them as he tries to make it out, and Tortuga will get that kill. This Shockwaves team is just swinging right now. The mid Phoenix should end up falling off the back of that as well, and Kingslayers come out with haymaker after haymaker.
And we really see that Wyvern's coming into it, and despite not really taking objectives early with those kills, he's just been able to translate it into constant go, 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 death, 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 and that's really been working. And that's such a bold strategy to do, because sometimes you can end up getting taken over if all you focusing on is kills, but Wyvern manages to just keep the gas on. And that's the important thing about that too. If you're not focusing objectives, you need to keep the gas on. You need to prevent them from doing something. You need to make them think where you are and try to stop you and do something and then keep going at them. So despite not really taking these objectives, like I was saying, Wyvern has translated into his own method of just constant killing. It's a bit trickier to do because if they don't choose to engage you, then you can't do it. And then you got to find something else. But he's been able to really get them to constantly fight into him and his team, and they're losing farm for it. So where they could easily be like, hey, we shouldn't fight into this guy. All he wants is kills. Let's kind of bait him into a fight, but not really do too much about it. Everyone else can kind of go do their own thing. They keep baiting into him, like, oh, he's 10-0. Let's get this gold. Let's get this gold. Let's get this bounty. But Wyverns is just constantly baiting them in, telling him, all right, come into my web, says the spider to the fly, and he keeps getting these kills.
Well, there could be even more, as it's SwagMaster who's in a lot of trouble now and uses the cage, but it does not matter. Wyvern will end up getting credit for that kill as well, and that's a big pick because the Fire Giant is available right now, and Kingslayers with almost a 10,000 gold lead at the moment right now, just seemingly out of nowhere with that lead, will be able to start this one up. And the Shockwave members, they must be aware of it. We can see that Reyhum is on a slightly interesting flank over there in the mid lane. Needs to be careful because Fire Giant's burning, but Ganondad is in the back. He could look to try and steal this one up. Volcanic Lightning is available as Death from Above is used to try and get some safety, but the Lawbringer will bring him back onto Reyhum, who has to use the beads. Fire Giant does end up dropping, and Tortuga will add another kill to that. Ganondad unable to steal that one away. So the first Fire Giant of the game goes to the Kingslayers, and Wyvern is running through this team now with this 12th kill of the game. The Shockwaves need to back up here because the Kingslayers are just on a roll.
They're really using that CC and displacement to the best of their ability throughout this entire game. Between Wyvern, Nico, and JunglePhobic, they've just been able to really make sure that the Shockwaves can't go where they want to, that they're stuck in wherever Kingslayers wants them. And they can't fight, and that's one of the biggest problems, is your positioning. And if you can't control your own positioning, then you're not going to have a fun time.
Trapped in the cage might not be a fun time, but the Kingslayers don't seem to mind all that much. That's two big impactful ultimates out of the Shockwaves on this siege defense attempt here, and the Kingslayers seem like they can just take their time. They got out those ultimates. They're just gonna back up and probably head towards this Pyromancer.
Very smart choice, because you don't want to sit there, and I've seen so many games thrown because you're trying to push a Phoenix Siege, and if you have the advantage to just start going for something like a Pyromancer or EFG, something that'll help you with the siege, that's always a smart choice. You always have to be careful because you don't want to give them room to breathe and farm and catch up. You want to keep your boot on them and keep going forward, but you also don't want to overextend yourself to the point you give them an opportunity. You want to only give them as much as they need, just so you can come back tenfold. So now they got that bomb in hand. Would be good for the mid Phoenix, which is pretty low. Or maybe they'll just walk into the mid Phoenix, take it, and then use the bomb on something else. Maybe one of these side Phoenixes, because the Titans look like they're going to start going out to dual lane. But maybe that'll be a nice distraction that Kingslayers need to just take out this middle Phoenix again.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of interesting and fun ways to deal with the Titans unleashing. You know, some teams preferring to push with them and using it as like an unofficial sixth man. Some teams preferring to use it as a distraction, as you said. But SwagMaster just wanted to look towards the gold here, and he might have stepped up a bit too far. I'm a monster. We'll get the kill, in Tortuga. We'll add another one to his tally, and now it's Gymkhana who's in a lot of trouble on the Maui, running away from 4, and Wyvern will become godlike on this pick. 13 kills for this Susano, 0 deaths. Primal Fury goes the way of the Shockwaves. It seems like this entire map is just theirs for the taking.
whoever kills Wyvern is going to get an item for free. That's how it's just gonna be. ZakuZz getting stuck out. Aegis isn't enough. Wyvern's now 14 and oh, Reyhum stuck to the sky. Wyvern tracked behind enemy lines. Ganondad's looking at a payday right now.
He is, but he needs to be careful because Wyvern could turn this back around, but there's so many members. Look at the mobility. Reyhum is the one that gets that payday kill onto Wyvern. Finally, someone shuts down this Susano. And the mid Phoenix is still standing, so they weren't able to pick that up, but the Titan has been marching this entire time. This tier 2 is an afterthought now. Will end up falling, and it looks like they could, if they choose, kind of go for a split on these Phoenixes. 3 are in left right now. There's 1 in mid. Wyvern is on the gray screen, but the Titan marches into the Phoenix, and it's going to start dealing some damage, but it seems like the Kingslayers are playing it safe right now, playing it patient. Landfall will not let them though, and Ragemore's in a lot of trouble. Reyhum will get another kill on this Marticarus. The Phoenix is so low though, it will end up falling to the Titan, but this Kingslayer squad, they're trying to make it out because the Shockwaves, they are charging forward. JunglePhobic is in a lot of trouble. He tries to peel for his team, and he does look like he will successfully make sure he is the one to fall. They're sacrificing himself. But what a defense coming out of the Shockwaves.
What a defense indeed. But I think the issue, though, is they were so preoccupied on 2 Kingslayers, which may have saved them from maybe a deicide, but they let the Phoenix go. So the one thing I noticed that whole fight was that there was 2 separate fights happening. There was Seismic Shockwaves and Kingslayers, and then there was Titan and Phoenix. It felt like neither team contributed to the damage of the other objective. And I don't necessarily mean that in a bad way, because maybe you got to stop something, but no one can really stop Wyvern at this point.
They cannot. He gets another kill. I'm a monster just off the mark. But that was a 2v1 for a bit there, and Wyvern just able to still win that one out. You know, you may have killed him once, but he still kind of feels like a raid boss at the moment.
Raid boss is just saying it lightly. This man is 15 and 1, and he's showing no signs of stopping. He's just going full force, full steam ahead. And I think that this is definitely going to be Kingslayer's win condition, and possibly also Seismic Shockwaves. When you have an opponent this big, if you can manage to take him out of the fight or pick him early, sometimes it's a bit of a discouraging event for the Kingslayers, who are now about to lose Reyhum and SwagMaster.
They are in a lot of trouble. Reyhum, with a sliver of HP, is unable to make it out. Nicodrin will get that kill, but at least SwagMaster was able to make it out, so they only lost 1. But it's opened the door for the Kingslayers to feel confident to step up towards this Fire Giant. And we've just crossed the 30-minute threshold, so this will be enhanced. If they can pick this one up, they'll be able to strip away those backdoor protections. And look at the zones coming out of Wyvern and Nicodrin right now. They're holding them at their own speed buff. There's just no one to step up. SwagMaster is going to try. He's flanked around the edge to try and get into this pit as Nicodrin holds 2 in the mid lane. Fire Giant so low back there. Just need a little bit more secure as the Rom is up in the sky, but he's going to land in a Typhoon. That's not where you want to come down. Kingslayers get the Fire Giant. Wyvern gets a double kill, and things are just going their way time and time again. Swag might be the next to fall, and he will to Nicodrin. Is this just game?
This is definitely where it ends here. It's EFG that they have on their belts. This mid Phoenix is already weak. They don't have a bomb in pocket, but I don't think it matters. Ragemore's just going for kills rather than objectives. Blood is in the water, and Kingslayers are hungry.
They'll take the mid Phoenix, and they're stepping towards the throne room now. The Titan's starting to take damage. There are only 2 members of the Shockwaves left. It's Gymkhana and Reyhum trying to do anything they can to keep this game alive. Landfall will pull 1 back, but look at the Titan health. Where did it go? Seismic Shockwaves get the first game win here in the set, or excuse me, Kingslayers get the first win here over the Shockwaves. Kingslayers just looked unstoppable in that game. What what happened to the Shockwaves to just allow the Kingslayers to run at them like that?
I think it was a lot of the picks into the tier, and well, obviously it's Wyvern, right? I don't think it needs to go without saying. Everywhere he was, damage and death followed. He was oppressive to say the least, and just constantly was an issue that Seismic Shockwaves could not handle. That goes without saying. But I think it's Nicodrin and JunglePhobic. We touched on the beginning and the middle of the match there too. When you can sit there and direct where the enemy team goes, and you can push them wherever you want and separate out their formation, it weakens it out. Not only does it make these two people vulnerable, whoever you just pulled away, right? Now, the other three don't have those two to protect them or do the damage to cover for them. So if you can control a team and their placement, then you essentially win. I think it was a bit of a comp diff in sense, because with this tier and with this Kuzenbo, it was able to split up the formation and make it weak, and Wyvern was able to just blow up anyone he found, and Tortuga was able to pick him apart as well. Ragemore just kind of doing a lot of structure damage and just throwing in damage when he could. But I think it was a lot of the ability to control the enemy team, and then also just having big circles with the crush, the typhoon, and then just the Medusa stare, taking advantage of it. And I don't think that Seismic Shockwaves are really able to have that opportunity to control the enemy team or deal damage in the right places and coherently. It's just, when I look at that team, it just seems like a lot more precision directed damage, and they just didn't have the means to really direct it on the right targets.
Yeah, not, maybe time to go back to the drawing board if you're the Shockwaves. And as we get ready for picks and bans for game 2 here in just a little bit, what do you think the Shockwaves need to do differently? Is this picking a different comp? Do they need to take Susano away and like ban out different things? What should their game plan be for game 2?
I feel like you have to respect the Susano at this point. 17-1 is not something to scoff at. So you have to respect that. I think you kind of leave Marty on the ban floor. If you're scared about them using it, that's fine. Then ban it. If you're not scared about them using it, then just leave it be. Marty does a lot, but I think you sacrifice a lot more when you start putting him in mid, because you don't have enough to make up for that magical damage. You make it a bit easier for the enemy team. And the big thing is you don't have those big circles. You don't have that Scylla circle. You don't have the Agni circle, the Merlin circles. You have a line, and then you have the dart. The bush doesn't do any damage. Death from above does shred protections, but that's your ultimate. You don't want to use that. And we see the Marty ban coming out for Shockwaves. I gotta say, I'm happy they decided to ban him. I don't think he really has much of a place in their comp team. I think they really need to reassess everything they're doing.
Can you imagine if the Mardi Gras did do damage? He's already such a good god. Don't give Hi-Rez that idea by speaking that into existence.
I can't imagine it doing damage. I mean, I guess they could do caltrop stuff. Maybe like it stings you, like some type of like stinging grass or something, but I can't imagine them doing it.
Yeah, no.
That ability is it's more flavor text than anything, but it does have its uses too. Because all of a sudden you walking past a bush and a whole team pops out. You never expected that.
Yeah, it's definitely got its uses. Then continuing with the bans, because they're going through them here. It's the Martigrus that you mentioned, taken away by the Shockwaves, paired up with the Thor and the Baba Yaga. Susano actually banned away by the Kingslayers here. Even though Wyvern looked so good on it, they are the ones who take it off the board, along with the Yorm and the Robin. So maybe not wanting to pick that up in first pick because this Ganesh is available. It was banned away in game 1. It seems like something that the Kingslayers are definitely wanting to prioritize.
I'm excited to see if they were so scared of it game 1, and we had such a showing from the Kuzenbo in game 2. I'm very excited to see how they manage this Ganesh and how they put him to use. How the silences, the dash, Dharmic Pillars is huge too, because if you can get someone stuck on the firing lines, their health just disappears. It's a magic trick at that point.
You'll never defeat me.
Yeah, he brings so much. On the other side, though, the Shockwaves will give the ROM back to Zaku before picking up the Erlong Shen, which, in my eyes, is a jungle pickup, but I suppose there is some level of flexibility. Do you see a world where that goes to Swag over there in the solo lane instead?
I believe it could work. I believe the Erlang does benefit from this bruiser meta,
The law
and he's able
returns to this
kind of take
land.
advantage of it because with his buff, it helped him do bonus damage. So it's always nice when you're dealing with a whole bunch of bruisers too. But we have Erlon's been good in this meta, but he hasn't been great. So I'm very interested to see where they put him and how they use him.
Yeah, we'll have to find out as the draft goes on where we think he's going to end up going. The tier will be given back to Nicodrin, who looked so comfortable on it in game one. I like that. And it'll be paired up with X-Ball to go into that long lane alongside the Ganesh. Pretty solid top three coming out of the Kingslayers here.
The one thing that's always scary about JunglePhobic is team fight phase, because back in season 1 of Smite, my team would play in a JunglePhobic and we would hate it. The funny thing is there'd be a JunglePhobic and Vulcan combo, and we had trouble one game because all of my squishy teammates managed to find their way into the center of a Vulcan ult whenever JunglePhobic made the world dark. It was as if they had a homing beacon right to the center of like a Vulcan Earthshaker. And JunglePhobic has so much utility with that ultimate because he makes everyone second guess what they're doing, causes a whole bunch of just disorganization, and can prevent them from really knowing what they're doing. So if you're trying to siege a Phoenix and it just lights turn off, you don't know where you're throwing your autos. You don't know who's trying to engage on you. So there's a lot of value to come out of that, but I really think they should have let him keep the stun that occurs at the end of it, because I think that would just really kind of put icing on top. And I think he's a very solid pick into this team.
Yeah, I agree. I think X-Ball has been looking very good as of late. It's a good combo for him. The Shockwaves will answer back with the Shiva before we had the second phase of bans, and the Terra afterwards. Bans getting taken off the board are Morgan Le Fay, Agni, Hell, and Athena, all taken away from both these teams. The Terra is not a pick we've seen, at least in this set so far, but it's something we see all the time. Very strong pick, kind of just gets to press 4 and win a team fight with that Earthen Fury. Do you think it pairs well with what the Shockwaves have drafted so far?
I think it pairs well definitely with Shiva when he gets in that destruction stance and the dash, because it ticks. The one thing you want when you have a Terra and you have that Earthen Fury is you need ticks. You need DOT to secure the bonus damage, right? So you can have someone hitting their autos or staying on top, so that's always good. But let's say a wall pops up, right, and separates, then all of a sudden you can't get the rest of the hits off. But let's say you have an Outposh who throws his damage over time, or even a DoctahShru who the Kingslayers picked up, and then she gets a scratch off, 3 ticks, and all of a sudden Earthen Fury pops. So I think you're kind of looking for some characters with DOT to help confirm the damage off of the Earthen Fury.
Kingslayers with a very fun last 2 picks, in my opinion. DoctahShru, as you mentioned, and the Zhong Kui, both locked in here. Not stuff we see all too often, but I, for one, adore Zhong Kui at any point, and I feel like the meta semi-fits around him right now. Do you like how the Kingslayers have rounded out their draft? Or are you more of a Zhong Kui hater, I guess is how I'd put it?
Zhong Kui's always, I guess, a little bit of always Zhong Kui hater, because sometimes he's just so oppressive that it's just annoying to deal with, and you're like, why is this god even in the game? But I can understand when playing him and you're such a powerhouse, it's always so much fun. I will say I do kind of like the Kingslayers draft. I like both drafts better. I think the Kingslayers might have it with this tier, because I don't think Seismic Shockwaves has much of a way to stop the tier. And Nico was such a huge presence last game. But I think this game's going to be definitely a bit closer than it was before.
Yeah, this game could definitely go a couple different directions because there's some interesting picks on both sides. We've yet to see how that'll play out. The only way to do that is to hop into the battleground of the gods for game number 2 here between the Shockwaves and the Kingslayers. Welcome in, everybody, to game 2 in this Divine Division matchup. We got some fun picks coming out of the Kingslayers, who've gone up 1-0 so far in the set. Zhong Kui in the mid lane with DoctahShru in the hands of Wyvern. And we talked about Zhong Kui on the desk a bit, but DoctahShru isn't someone we see all too often, but after game one, I feel like Wyvern, you could give him anything and he's just going to perform on it.
And I think that I'm very excited to see how they turn into this with his Zhang Kui, because it's always, if you can't handle him early, it's similar to Tier. If you can't handle him early, he just starts running away with the rest of the game. I do like the DoctahShru coming out because you have at least two targets who don't have any CC immunity in their kit between Erlang and Terra, so you can definitely exploit them with your Powwow, as well as forcing out ultimates such as maybe Shiva's Dance, forcing Ra to throw out a Searing Pain without even looking, or maybe forcing Ra into the sky knowing where he's exactly going to come back down.
Yeah, definitely a lot of potential coming out of this DoctahShru for Wyvern, and it's forced Ganondad to pick up the Bede's first relic, which not something you normally want to have to do on a jungler. So he's having to already kind of shift his playstyle around what Wyvern's going to be able to bring. DoctahShru, not the most early game god. Do you feel like we're going to need to wait a while before we see Wyvern get too active?
I think it teeters on if Wyvern can get active on Ganondad, because last time Wyvern really started getting going when he got that first pick on Ganondad, and then he got the second one, and then the third one. And I think it naturally rolled into what it was, to the point where Wyvern realized how big he was, and then at that point he just took it and ran with it.
Ragemore getting aggressive here onto Zaku, who's on the run but has the help of his Terra to try and buy some space. Actually taking a tower shot is JunglePhobic, who now needs to be the one who needs to be careful. Just a couple more autos, but the shell will keep him healthy enough. No first blood yet here 2 minutes into the game in the dual lane, but in the mid lane, Reyhum with a sliver of HP. It doesn't look like the Kingslayers are confident enough to step up to that one quite at the moment. And Reyhum's got that sustain, continue to live and farm up.
Both these teams are really just sending it forward, but they have such discipline to make sure they don't step too far forward where they're getting picked. We've seen health get really low. Luckily, Rog's got the heal to kind of help him sustain up a little bit. Dual lane, they were able to just kind of back up and let pots and whatever they might have in their pocket do the job. So both teams are really working hard to make sure they don't give up this first blood. And I think that might be the catalyst for which team really going to end up taking this, because it seems like each team is very good at kind of just taking that small little lead and just ever so tiny, just pushing it one more step and then another, from an inch to a foot to a yard to a mile, right? So I think it's all about who plays, just takes the right risks, but doesn't take too much and bite off more than they can chew.
In game one, we were talking about how there's a bit of a window where you can kind of get onto Nicodrin on this tier and kind of, make his life uncomfortable, put him a bit behind. Is that window still open? Do you think that Ganondad still has the ability to do that on this Erlang here 4 minutes in? Or now that level 5 has been reached, is Nicodrin just kind of gonna be able to do his thing?
I think it's a tier, and unless you have anti-heal, I wouldn't go into it. I do think that maybe they have more of an opportunity with the taunt that Erlang has, and then the shield for a bit more survivability on the turtle. But I think the opportunity to kind of take advantage of tier has come and passed. You need to wait for the tier to disadvantage himself. Maybe dive tower and get picked, and then you keep exploiting that. But if a tier's on level, you have to have one really good plan, or have him misstep enough that you can take advantage of it. So if he gets too aggressive, too low of health, then you do it. But you can't really 100-0 a tier who's about on level. You have to let him make a mistake. There's a whole bunch of guys you can gank and they can do everything right and still die, but Tier's one of those gods where he's got two different dashes, he's got a heal, and then he's got the leap to get out. So you have to be careful with who you're going to gank him. I think the opportunity's gone and passed, and you need to wait for Nicodrin to make an opportunity himself, or possibly even SwagMaster to present the opportunity, because it seems like SwagMaster is really handling Nico very well this game.
Well, Tortuga's getting handled in the mid lane, but so is Reyhum, and Wyvern will get the first kill of the game on this Dodgy. The Palau pulls back Grandad, and it's a double kill for Wyvern. And if you're the Shockwaves, you got to feel worried because the 2 early kills going to the man that went 15-1 in the last game, that is not what you want to see.
Wyvern again coming up big. Great team play to bait out the beads from the jungler. Ooh. They managed to get it away, but Ragemore managing to dodge those arrows just perfectly. But unfortunately for Ganondad, they just got picked out by Wyvern, and Wyvern just has Ganon's number.
He really seems to right now. And this, Dodgy with a lead is a very scary prospect for this Seismic Shockwaves team. But we're only 6 minutes into the game. There's less than 1,000 gold difference between these two squads. Experience fairly even as well, and even a lead in mid for Reyhum on the Raw. So Seismic Shockwaves definitely still very much in a position to, decide their own fate in this game. Do you think that Wyvern is their target of choice for who to look at, to who to try and shut down because of his performance last game, or is there someone else that kind of takes that spot?
I think you got to respect Wyvern. I don't think he's the target. I don't think you want to make him the target because he's shown time and time again that they're able to just kind of get out of sticky situations, but not get out of, maybe get himself into one.
Reyhum getting dove under the tower, and Wyvern is already on a killing spree, diving underneath and getting that kill onto Reyhum. Ganondad was looking for something in the jungle as well, but wasn't able to find too much to pan out from it as the lights were off for a second. And JunglePhobic's actually trying to kick things off here, but Earthen Fury is used in response, and the damage is going both ways. A good taunt by Ganondad to pull the elephant back in. Just a little bit more damage is all that's needed, but the Ohm is there, and there's nothing Ganondad can do. And that will allow JunglePhobic to make it out. But such a scrappy fight around here. And look, Ragemore has rotated over, and Ganondad will fall to Tortuga. Just maybe overstaying his welcome on this Erlang Shen.
That is the biggest killer and thrower of games, is overstaying your welcome. So many teams will do it. They'll think they're fine. Oh, I got a heal, I got protections, I got this, I got that. It never does you any good, because someone full health, full mana, and no cooldowns is going to walk up onto you after you just drop 2 of your abilities to try to take out a buff. That's exactly what happened to Ganondad. That kill got dropped, and I think he definitely should have left. He got caught out by the Zhang Kui, who was just sitting in mid and had better mana, cooldowns, and he had his team around him too. You gotta know where your team is, because if you're chasing them back down there, we saw at least one of those people was full health. He was trying to save JunglePhobic. So you got to take note of where you are, who's around you, and Ganondad just got caught looking.
Yeah, he did, but Ragemore needs to be a little careful. He knows he has the help of Wyvern, but the damage coming out of this ROM, he needs to dodge the snipes again. One more is all that it's going to need. He does manage to get out of there. The Palau not in range, though, so ZakuZz able to live, and both ADCs will be able to get out with a sliver of HP remaining. Another good rotation out of Wyvern, though, was looking for something just off the mark this time round.
Ragemore, I gotta get lessons from you, my guy. The dancing shoes are on fleek tonight. I know some people cringed at me saying that, but you're gonna have to deal with it. He was able to outskirt, just outdance all of those snipe shots, too, and he's done it before. And I think it's gonna be something to watch out for, because Ragemore is not gonna let this Rama just pick him off. He's ready to fight.
Yeah, he is. He's definitely has no problem getting aggressive on this Xbalanque at the time being. And it's an interesting build coming out of Ragemore as well. It's the Gilded Arrow into the Transcendence, and then what I imagine will be something like an Executioner or maybe an Aussie. Not a build path I've seen all too often. What does this bring to X-Ball in particular?
Aussie sustain easily enough if you can go it, but I think it's going to go for Executioner. The Transcendence, you have to go to make sure those bolas hit like freight trains. And it also helps the early game a little bit too, because it gives your poison darts a bit of power, and so does your dash darts. So Transcendence is always a good item to pick up on the X Ball, and it's just it always translates very well for him. Gives him the extra power boost that he needs, and like I said, makes those bolas hit like crazy. Because if you're hitting and splitting those, and they're hitting off someone else, and the person who gets the second one opens their eyes at the damage number, that first person's probably not going to be standing for much more.
Yeah, they might not be able to open their eyes because they'll just be absolutely dead.
Grayscaled.
Yeah, if that's the case. Every time I glance over, Ragemore is on the tower line or semi close to it over here on this Xbalanque. Of course, as I mentioned, it backs up to the middle of the wave, middle of the lane, but just so much aggression coming out from this pick, and it looks like he's so confident on there. The Kingslayers, you know, we've been talking so much about Wyvern, but if Ragemore can continue to farm up X-Ball with a lead, or X-Ball, you know, late into the build, that's just a very scary problem for the Seismic Shockwaves to deal with.
For sure, Ragemore is shown to be a menace time and time again. Finally, we see the tier getting ganked. Let's see if Ganondad can pull it off.
I immediately realize they don't get to win that fight. Not sure if they spotted Wyvern or just had, you know, good game sense to realize Nicodrin's really hard to deal with right now. He had two members looking at him, and it didn't even look like he took too much damage. And Beacon's going to spawn here in the next 7 seconds, and already we see both teams grouping for what could be quite a big team fight as the Beacon ends up spawning. Kingslayers are the first on the scene, but there are a lot of members of the Shockwaves here as well. Dharmic Pillars comes out to try and push them off the objective. And where did Gymkhana go? Ragemore will get the first kill of this engagement onto the support. And now it doesn't even look like the Shockwaves feel comfortable to step up to the Beacon, and they won't. Kingslayers get the kill onto the support and take the first Beacon of the game.
Very solid play from the Kingslayers. Gymkhana got a little too far up, trapped in those Dharmic Pillars, and then just erased by Ragemore. Only thing I would have liked to see is I would like to see Kingslayers be a bit more aggressive after the fact, to trying to push off or poke away Seismic Shockwaves. Maybe throw a false indication they're going for this Gold Fury, and then turn around and blow them up. You know? Like, you have the lead right now, and like I said, translate it into something. Translate it into the Gold Fury. Translate it into, not again, Pyromancer's not up, but just something. You know, you want to make these wins impactful. You got the kill onto the support. Now translate it to something else.
Wyvern's trying to translate his own damage right now onto Ganondad. Does pull the beads out, but when he lands, he takes quite a bit of damage from Reyhum. He gets rooted. The Earthen Fury is used on him as well, and Tortuga will get a kill, but SwagMaster will at least get that kill, that shutdown onto Wyvern. So Shockwaves get their first kill of the game, and Tortuga's getting walked at, but he's still full health. Elsewhere, Ragemore gets a solo kill on the Xbalanque, feeling himself in that dual lane. So across the map, the Kingslayers kind of pulling an advantage here, but at least the Shockwaves get that shutdown onto the Daji.
Not as big as a shutdown as last game would have been,
Yeah,
but it's always nice to get that bonus gold in pocket and translate it into a swing around, because it might only be for one player, but it's always nice to have that boost. Ragemore trying to run away. Ganondad swinging. JunglePhobic comes in just in time.
Supports are so OP. You know, that's not something that would ever appear on a scorecard or a post-game stat screen, but he just saved Ragemore's life. You can't even see his health bar with how low that Xbalanque is. A great rotation out of JunglePhobic there. And there's a lot of members of the Kingslayers on this left side of the map right now. Do you think they're going to maybe look towards this Gold Fury?
I would like to see a Gold Fury. I'd like to see him position up. You not necessarily go for it, but bait it up. You know you can take these team fights, and you've been winning them consistently. I say make a plan, bait it out, and then get a pick to translate it into Gold Fury. We see a bit more of a lead popping out in jungle now. Ganondad falling down 2 levels, but Wyvern. So I think that's just an indication. Don't just fight for fighting's sake. Make a point of it. Get something out of it. Whether if it is a Pyromancer, or just forcing a team fight so you can pick him out, then take a tower. And I think it's where they really want to go. You want to fight for a reason. If you have to talk to your team and say, hey, why we're fighting, and nobody can answer you with an actual answer, like, oh, he came in first. Well, why are we fighting? Uh, then that's a problem. You need to disengage and figure out a reason to fight. Or when the fight's over, think, what can we do now? What changed since that fight? And if it's nothing, then that's a big problem because that means you waste a whole bunch of resources on something that didn't really matter.
Well, using resources are the Kingslayers on this Pyromancer right now, burning it quickly, and it's really just Reyhum who's nearby. But Searing Pain is always an issue, and he steals it away. Reyhum with the snipes will make sure that objective goes the way of our Chaos team instead. A good steal there.
Good showing by Reyhum. And that was just awareness to know where that pyro was, the range of your Searing Pain, while also trusting the damage it can do. That was just full commitment by Reyhum, knowing exactly what he had to do and knowing how to do it. Impressive. And I don't know if it's enough to get the Shockwave swinging back, but it's a good step forward as the first objective that's really fallen for this entire game.
Yeah, it is. I mean, we're 16 minutes in, and this has just been, farming up and scrapping around various areas. That objective falls, and speaking of scrapping, where's Gymkhana going? His health bar is absolutely deleted, and Ragemore will get credit for that kill onto the support. That is another pick going the way of the Kingslayers. But like you've been asking for, where's the stuff after the stuff, like F. used to call it? Gold Fury was right there, and it doesn't seem like that's even on their radar at the moment.
Gold Fury's right there. They could have pushed out the remaining two. They had the numbers advantage. So there's something more they could have done there. They just opted not to. Which, it's fine to be safe, but the problem is if you're too safe, then you're giving Seismic Shockwaves the chance to fight back. You only get to level 20 once. So if you're not exerting a lead to where you get to level 20 considerably sooner than your opponents, and you're allowing them to stay maybe a level behind you, if that, then it's not going to translate well. You can have 20 kills to 5, 100 kills to 10, but if you don't translate in those into actual victories to put the enemy team behind or force yourself ahead, then it's just going to come to late game where deicide matters and it's all about who can team fight the best. And I will say Kingslayers has been team fighting rather well, but you don't want to throw it to chance. You want to take advantage of those items you have, that XP you have, the levels and your abilities that you have. You don't want to let the enemy team get any closer to you than they need to be.
Well, they're going to at least get this next beacon, or at least look towards it, which is an objective that the Kingslayers have been prioritizing every time it's been available. They will take this next beacon of the game, but once again, they're looking for a fight in the enemy jungle. Wyvern is so far forward here with the help of Ragemore. Don't end up finding too much off the back end of it. We'll just recede from that jungle. And again, it seems like they don't care about the objectives. They're just gonna, back up and kind of return to a state of farming. But Tortuga wants to return to a state of killing, blinks in and uses that Zhonghui ultimate, but doesn't have quite enough damage to get the kill onto Reyhum. But guess who's here? It's Wyvern who gets out the Earthen Fury. It's a big ultimate. It was just used to try and make sure the mid laner stayed alive.
You know the Terror's ultimate's down. You know Ra is scared. So take advantage of that. Force a team fight where the Terra can't use the ultimate to confirm damage or heal her teammates. Force them into an awkward spot. Take advantage of your levels. Your support is 2 levels up on theirs. Jungle's 2 levels up. If you give them too much time, then you're not going to get anything. I understand playing safe. You don't want to take a risk that isn't necessary. You don't want to fight into a Gold Fury where someone to steal it, especially at the Raw. You got to be careful, but you got to be smart too. Place those wards, get your information, and just execute.
Whoa, Ragemore is deleted by that Searing Pain coming out, and ZakuZz will get credit for the kill with the snipes. All of a sudden, Ragemore just wasn't on the map. What a snipe coming out of Reyhum, and this is exactly what you were talking about. Shockwaves are showing that they can fight into this even with the deficit, because it's not quite enough yet to be backbreaking.
And that's where the issue comes in. Is now Shockwaves are looking at this Gold Fury. There was only one pick. It was Ragemore. And Ragemore's going to be up in about 10 seconds, but they don't care. They're going to translate this. Nicodrin's in there, but they're trusting their team to deal with him. Even despite him knocking up, but we see Kingslayers is now back in and going to push Shockwaves off this Gold Fury.
They do not want to give this Fury up, that's for sure. They step forward to make sure that the Shockwaves are unable to pick that one up for the time being, and it looks like they might need to back up and stay a little safe though, because charging forward are the Seismic Shockwaves. Another Searing Pain comes through and does quite a bit of damage to JunglePhobic, who throws out the Dharmic Pillars, but the Earthen Fury is the response, and JunglePhobic is on the run. The Powwow though is used by Wyvern, who does land a chain onto the Rom. Ragemore gets one kill and pulled in and deleted. Wyvern gets the kill onto ZakuZz, but immediately falls to Reyhum. It's 2 for 1 so far, favoring out the Kingslayers, but they're the ones who are having to back up. It's the Shockwaves who are the ones that have the positional advantage around this Fury. Doesn't look like they're going to want to start it up though, but these fights are starting to get more and more even.
And the one thing that was a big issue there was they waited so long that Gymkhana got the ultimate back. The Earthen Fury was there to heal the team and do the damage. They didn't take advantage of the fact that it was on cooldown. And that's the issue. The aggression there needs to be aggression, but it needs to be calculated. You can't just dive into the back line, but you got to know what your cooldowns are. All right, we got Terra's ultimate for essentially nothing. Now let's dive in. Let's take advantage of it. Let's send it. But now we see Kingslayers are actually translating it into a Pyromancer, but Seismic Shockwaves are not letting them take it for free.
They are not. Get that kill once again onto Ragemore, and SwagMaster gets up down on by Nicodrin, but doesn't seem to mind even under the tower. Very tanky now is this Shiva, and I don't know what switched, but it seems like the Shockwaves are the one who have the momentum. They're the ones who are controlling the pace. Even when they lose out on the Pyromancer, look, they're trying to siege down this T1 tower right now, stepping up and getting it fairly low, but they need to be a little careful. There are a number of members of the Kingslayers here, but look at the sustain that they have between Terra and the Ra. It's just so easy for them to kind of win the poke battles. It will step up towards this T1 tower again, excuse me. They're unable to find too much damage on it. They have a wave again now, but they're just kind of staring at each other. Nothing too much happening. Searing Pain just off the mark, and they might just have things fizzle out for the time being, except for Nicodrin. He got bored. He blinked into the back, and that kicks this fight off. The Kingslayers say, remember, we can team fight too. Tortuga will get a kill. Reyhum ended up falling there. The Dharmic Pillars does so much damage. Wyvern up into the Powwow, looking for targets, trying to find someone, anybody, as SwagMaster is getting melted by the crit autos coming out of Ragemore. Wyvern will get a kill onto ZakuZz, and the rest of the Shockwaves have to back up towards their Phoenix.
Amazing engage by Nicodrin, and that's one of the reasons why you pick Tier, is he can replace and just move around the entire enemy team. Put Reyhum in such a bad spot, and the Ra just could not get out. Happy to see they're finally taking advantage of this separation, getting their first Gold Fury, getting this opportunity. They're finally taking it. And like I said before, I don't expect them to be overly aggressive or take early Gold Furies for no reason. And I understand the situations they were in didn't warrant a Gold Fury at the time. But you don't want to just kill for killing's sake. You want to kill to open up opportunities. To either it's, all right, let's deny this person farm, or hey, Gold Fury's up, I'm gonna rotate over here, let's get a pick here, and then force them to rotate to Gold Fury, blow them up, and then take it. It's just about planning what you're doing, because Shockwaves has shown that they can come back into this and fight. Kingslayers had opportunities to extend the lead, but just didn't really pull the trigger when it came time to doing it. There weren't really collective efforts to open up opportunities.
Beads expended by Wyvern here, aggressively trying to find a kill onto Ganondad, but the entirety of the Shockwaves are on the rotation to help out their jungler, and Wyvern needs to be careful here. Gets knocked up, takes so much damage, but a good dash is not enough onto the Fire Giant, and Swag will get credit for that kill. The Searing Pain was used as well to try and find the kill onto the jungler from the Kingslayers, but Wyvern's dead for over 40 seconds now.
And that's one of the classic cases of over-aggression, overconfidence. Wyvern's been dominating this entire game, dominated the last game, and thought they were going to be able to walk all over Ganondad, but not only was Ganondad able to stand up on his own 2 feet, but he had his team around to save him. So you want to make sure you're creating opportunities, but not taking bad decisions, because he just got surrounded by 5 people, and there's nothing that Wyvern could do. Just vulnerable.
Yeah, nothing that anybody can do when 4 members walk at you all this late into the game. Wyvern just had no real hope once that happened. The Kingslayers are not wanting to back down. They are getting aggressive once again as the Titans are getting ready to clash in the solo lane. SwagMaster takes a lot of damage and has to use that ult to try and sustain it back up, but it's not enough. Tortuga gets another kill. It's a double kill for the Zhonghui, and Tort is on a rampage. He's doing exactly what his team wants for him right now. And JunglePhobic and Nicodrin are zoning them so far away from the Titans. Gymkhana gets fearless into the wall. He's tanky as this Terra, but his health bar is just disappearing, and Wyvern will get that one up into the Powwow, forces out the ultimate from Zaku. But when you land, there's a tier underneath you, buddy, except for it's enough damage from the Ra to push him away. And there's low health bars for both sides right now, but the Kingslayers have those runic bombs from earlier. They'll take the T2, just let the Titan continue to push on its own.
Fire Giant. Fire Giant. Go to the Fire Giant. Fire Giant. Thank you, Rage More. I need... Fire Giant! Please, come on! Not the Pyro, they're all dead! Fire Giant! Well... I can't. At least they took an objective. I think they had the ability to take Fire Giant there. I don't know if it was subtle enough, or if I was too subtle about it. But they got most of the picks. Some of them were Nico was low, and definitely Jungle was low. But you can definitely start the Fire Giant and then have Nico teleport in. Oh, he doesn't have a teleport, so no, never mind. But maybe make his way into it to help tank it, or just something. Take advantage of the grayscales that you guys got. Pyro is good. You're finally get back those bombs that you had spent on that T2, but translate it into more. You don't want that Fire Giant to be up so Shockwaves can get it. Even if you kill the Fire Giant, then you all die afterwards. At least Shockwaves doesn't get it. They don't have the buff to start walking down your towers, and it's just. You need to start making these choices to accelerate a lead. I will say Kingslayers does have a considerable lead right now, a little under 10k, but at this point, gold is almost a moot point as the builds start finishing up. You want to start getting these buffs that translate into helping you win the late game.
Yeah, the later this goes, the less experience in gold is always going to matter. But Ganondad, he's going to need to stay alive here. But there's too many members of the Kingslayers around. And Tortuga will get his 6th kill of the game on the Zhonghui. He is the one kind of running the show right now for the Kingslayers, making this mid lane pick look so good.
Fire Giant. Fire Giant. Eventually they'll get it, but I'm liking what they're thinking here. They're baiting them in. Wyvern, they have no idea where Wyvern is right now. And I think this is what they need. I think you start the Fire Giant and you have Nico do something like that.
That is so much damage out of nowhere, and Wyvern is on Zaku as well. But Reyhum is the one in the most trouble, using the Searing Pain, but will end up falling. Powwow does get 1, but they're dead before the chain can even land. Zaku does a little bit of damage with those snipes, but the damage has been done to the Shockwaves. They're down 2 now. Ganondad will be respawning shortly, but it seems like your chanting hasn't worked yet. Kingslayers resetting.
Fire Giant. Fire... Whatever. I don't know. Because Reyhum's down, so their secure is gone. Nico's shown he is able to peel, like right there. And all this damage that Ragemore's going out, translate it into a Fire Giant.
Ganondad's here though with a good two-man taunt, and ZakuZz will get the kill onto Reyhum. Wyvern turns it right back around though, dropping Swag, but Ganon gets a kill onto Nicodrin. That's 2 down on the side of the Kingslayers now. And Reyhum will be respawning soon. ZakuZz gets another kill, and a great two-man pin will make sure that the Shockwaves can back up here. And this is the risk if you're not getting these objectives. You've been talking about it over and over. Now the Shockwaves are the ones with the advantage around this Fire Giant.
And I like to say, I'm using most of this comedically, but I do believe that there needs to be a plan for this Fire Giant. They've been getting these picks, but they haven't been translating to anything. They got the T2 off of the back of the Titan. That's fine. They got a kill there. It got them a Pyromancer. They got a couple more kills. Not even a Gold Fury has been talked about or shown or done. Fire Giant hasn't been started or baited. It's just killing to pad stats at this point. It's not changing the game state. And take advantage of this. Terra is the only one who's not level 20. Take advantage of the fact that she's missing points in some of her abilities. Do something, translate something, change the game state. Use words, get the information to figure it out, and finally, it looks like we're going to get a Fire Giant pull.
Yeah, they're at least getting this one started. SwagMaster is local and will be able to communicate to the team how low it is. They're very aware of it. But once again, it's Nicodrin and Wyvern zoning so far in that mid lane. SwagMaster is stepping up here. He's going to try and take this one away, at least be annoying around the pit. This Fire Giant is starting to get lower and lower. The lights turn off, and Nicodrin is on the run as SwagMaster jumps into the pit there. The Fire Giant with a sliver of HP, and SwagMaster gets 1 kill. Shockwaves steal the Fire Giant away at the same time. Out of nowhere, the Kingslayers, disaster for them. They're on the run. JunglePhobic will fall. Wyvern will fall, and SwagMaster gets a double kill for himself. And it's just Tort and Nicodrin left. Fire Giant around the waist of all 5 members of the Shockwaves. That is not what the Kingslayers needed.
I was very happy they pulled it. They were doing it at a time when the rest of Seismic Shockwaves wasn't there. But a better opportunity would have been when some of them were dead. All 5 of them were up. And it felt like that maybe maybe Nicodrin could have dealt with them on alone and just kind of took their attention, and then had Wyvern come in and do damage to SwagMaster. But this is the issue. You waited so long, and now you're losing Phoenixes for it. You're giving them the opportunity to come back, especially when they're sitting there with a Ra. When the Ra was dead is when you should have gone. You should have found a way to heal up, trade focus of it, and take advantage. Because look at Seismic Shockwaves got the Fire Giant. It's EFG, and now they're going to just take Gold Fury as well. They're just taking advantage of every opportunity they could get. And I just feel like Kingslayers were a bit too slow in taking advantage.
Yeah, and it's put them in a precarious position now. Map state definitely favoring the Seismic Shockwaves, as that middle Phoenix was just deleted by the double bombs and the pressure coming out from that team. They get even more objectives. And even though gold doesn't mean as much now in this, true late game state, they're about even in gold. There's not much separating these two teams. Shockwaves has successfully pulled themselves completely back into this game.
And that's what the issue is when you don't fight to set up for something, you just fight for fight and hope something changes. You're just giving the enemy the opportunity to come back into this fight. Kingslayers just kept fighting for the fighting's sake. And they didn't translate it really into anything. They didn't when Seismic Shockwaves was down, they didn't force another fight. They didn't start clearing out. They mostly cleared out camps, but there was no talk of a Gold Fury, no warding up Fire Giant and then going for Gold Fury. It was, all right, well, now we see on the map, I think it's about time we should do Fire Giant. And then they weren't able to zone off properly. And they committed for a bit too long there, too. When I call out Fire Giant, I just mean start it. Start something. Because if you're baiting them into the fight, then you can turn it around and then blow up on them. Fire Giant call doesn't always need to result in the death of the Fire Giant. It can result in the bait into the team in, setting up a trap, just causing a game state change. And unfortunately for Kingslayers, they waited so long. A game state change did happen, but that change was giving Seismic Shockwaves the gold lead.
It was indeed, and there's still 2 more towers left on the map for them to add even more gold to their pockets. And even if it's not for builds, they can pick up wards, they can pick up power pots. There's so much that they can still do with that to kind of give themselves that advantage. The T1 falls so quickly over there in the dual lane, and I can't imagine the Kingslayers give this T2 too much of a defense, but they're positioning like they might want to take at least somewhat of a fight. Both Wyvern and Nicodrin flanking around the sides. They're going to at least slow down this Seismic Shockwaves team. But the T2 just is absolutely deleted. Still standing though as Nicodrin gets into the backline. The Dark Pillars come out and Ragemore gets the first kill here. Wyvern gets another kill. Oh no, the Shockwaves. They're getting melted up into the powwow. He pulls in one. Ragemore has a double kill. Gets the beads out and SwagMaster will fall. EliteTortuga is unstoppable. And out of nowhere, it's Reyhum versus the world. He gets blinked on by Wyvern and his health bar is evaporating. Tortuga with a double kill for himself. And there's no one left. That's a full deicide.
You're 5 strong. I want to see a bird out of this. You have wave. That T1's going to die. You have a bomb. That there's no reason this shouldn't result in possibly a victory or at the very least a Phoenix drop. And I love to see it that they're using what they can to change the game state, because now for this next fire, not only does it set up the fact that fire minions are walking into the Titan, it sets up a game state that now they have to respect that lane with this Fire Giant coming up. And to reiterate on my last point, Fire Giant, Fire Giant, Fire Giant. And like I said, it doesn't necessarily need to be the result in the death of the Fire Giant. You have fire minions now pouring into that left side that they have to respect. And the only way they can get over there is a teleport from coming out from SwagMaster. So bait the Fire Giant and then just make it take however long as you possibly can. Let the minions do the damage. Or if you notice that Shockwaves is one down because they have someone dealing with the minions, jump into it. Change the game state. And I think we're about to see it right now.
They are looking towards this side of the map. They get a little bit of damage onto the Fire Giant, just baiting, as you'd mentioned. And they can afford to take their time because of those fire waves moving down, but they don't want to. They're hitting the go button right now and will charge forward, get the ult out of the Shiva, but Ragemore turned off the lights as well. So 2 cooldowns used, one on either side, and they'll back up towards the FG at the moment. Seems like they want to bait this fight more than they actually want the EFG.
Like I said, all it takes is just a change of the game state. Something doesn't need, the Fire Giant doesn't need to die, but you just need to make something happen, and a lot is happening right now. Nico getting a bit poked out, luckily being tiered, he has the opportunity to heal it back up, but Wyvern is getting sneaky.
He does get spotted out by Ganondad, but that's still not a position you want to see a dodge. He has the help of Tortuga as well. Kingslayers are playing this very patiently because look, the fire minions are pouring into the base and SwagMaster has had to back to deal with them, which opens the door for the Kingslayers to start up this Fire Giant. Nicodrin's on the zone and Tortuga's going to step up to try and help with that. Pops the ultimate and is taking a bit of damage but returning quite a bit more at the same time. Searing Pain flies through, but the damage is flying onto the Seismic Shockwaves. Up into the air on top of the Palo goes Wyvern, gets the ult out of ZakuZz, but the health bars are melting for the Shockwaves. It's another double kill for Ragemore on this Xbalanque. SwagMaster with a sliver of HP cannot make it out. Wyvern will get that kill, and Reyhum is on the run now too. Can he make it back under the Phoenix? He does at least do that safely, but there's 3 down on the side of the Shockwaves now. Do Kingslayers even need Fire Giant?
I don't think they need it. I'd like to see them try to win this out, but they should be going for it, and I don't see fully what I understand going for the gold fear right now, but you have 3 down. The Fire Giant gives you the ball to deal with towers. And the call for start to pull the Fire Giant first was beautiful. But they're just giving time for Shockwaves to respawn. The Fire Giant is where they should have been at. Luckily for them, though, this Oni wave is going to be on a Fire Minion wave as well. So, that should give them value in the left lane, but I feel like they're just wasting more time and giving Seismic Shockwaves the opportunity they need to come back. They need to do something, and they need to do something fast.
Yeah, SwagMaster has respawned, so all members of the Shockwaves are up and alive once again. And it looks like the Kingslayers are on the side of the map with the Fire Giant. They could look to start it up as Wyvern and Nikodrin are stepped very far forward, and they will indeed start this up because the Oni waves are marching down all 3 lanes. And they're melting it fairly quickly. Fire Giant already down to half HP. It doesn't look like the Shockwaves are going to be able to step up at all, as the zone from Nikodrin and Wyvern will make sure that happens, and EFG does go the way of the Kingslayers. Now they can look to siege in whatever lane they choose.
Gonna opt for this solo lane right now as they have the Oni wave minions pulled up. And Wyvern looking to be sneaky. Does Wyvern have a bomb in pocket? Wyvern does not. Looking to post up at this solo Phoenix. This could be the final push that Kingslayers need. They have all 3 Phoenixes are up, but that left one does not look healthy at all. All it really needs is a nice Ragemore ultimate, and I think this Phoenix could fall rather quickly. But it looks like they're opting for the solo. Splitting pressure right now. Ganondad's in a lot of trouble.
Yes, he is a sliver of HP, but has the heal from his ultimate. Does make it underneath the Phoenix in the mid lane, but Wyvern is there to make sure he does not get to live. They are doing split pressure, as you said. The right side bird should fall to Tortuga here in just a couple moments, but he's unable to get it. All the Phoenixes taking at least a little bit of poke, but standing for the time being. This is hard for the Shockwaves. The right side bird does fall as Tortuga makes sure that one goes their way. The left side bird falls. The middle bird is getting looked at as well, and so much damage on to Gymkhana, who will fall to Ragemore. This could just be the end. The Kingslayers are still healthy. They have the sustain from the EFG. They have the ability to step in with all 3 Phoenixes down. They're waiting for the waves. They have to look for the end here. They do. They'll step into the Titan room, looking for kills, though, over the Titan damage, because Ragemore can 2-shot Reyhum. And it's not even a worry for this team. The Titan is absolutely melting, and Kingslayers get a clean, at least for most points, 2-0 victory over the Shockwaves. What a set out of the Kingslayers there. They take the 2-0 victory, and they just played those fights so well, even if their macro wasn't quite, where we wanted with our Fire Giant chance. They, they mechanically played it so well. Tortuga 8-0-16 on a Zhong Kui.
I will say they played it very well. Very textbook. I do feel as if there were some elements which they could have improved on. Obviously, it feels like they can be a bit more aggressive with some of their shot calling and some of their objective pulls. I think if they can learn to start finding ways to take those objectives and start translating these kills, because we see Wyvern and Tortuga and Ragemore just pulling these numbers, but if they can translate those kills a bit earlier and into something, these games can easily go before 30 minutes. Kingslayers has the opportunity and the ability. We've seen it today, and they're just amazing. I just believe they can push all that maybe a little farther forward, maybe win a little bit faster, and in winning faster, it gives your opponent less opportunity to come back, because we saw Shockwaves had that opportunity.
They did, and Shockwaves, to their credit, played fairly well. As a unit, it's still early in the season. They got lots of time to kind of work together and build on that synergy. But when there was moments where you know, the Kingslayers overstayed their welcome by just a slight amount. You know, they were on it. They were getting picks. They were fighting very well. So I like what we saw out of them, even if they didn't get the win here today.
Seismic Shockwaves definitely showed that they aren't going down without a fight. They didn't just kind of roll over and show their belly. They fought for everything they could, and they tried to take advantage of the fact that the Kingslayers were giving them time and the opportunities. Ganondad, despite having a tough 2 games, really showed that they were able to claw their way back despite being a couple kills down, and they weren't just going to be discouraged and let the difference grow. Especially that first game when you saw Wyvern really getting those kills on Susano. Ganondad was keeping up with him. So I believe if the Seismic Shockwaves can kind of tighten up and clean up what they're doing, they definitely have the ability to be very competitive this season too.
I 100% agree. But today it was Kingslayers who came out on top. They'll get the set win. And that is going to do it for us today on the SDL. Here on the SDL, I have been DoctahShru once again, joined by Gear and with Nooblet on production. So thanks so much for hanging out with us, and we will see you all in the next one.